Hi, my name's Kelly Forbes, Senior Mental Health Practitioner with Newry and District GP Federation. Today I'm going to be talking a bit more about the types of unhelpful thinking patterns that we can get into. So research has shown that when our mood changes more towards anxiety or anger or stress or fear, then our thinking patterns change a little bit, and research has shown us that these are some very common patterns that we get into. As I go through these, I expect you might be nodding to some of them or thinking that sounds very familiar. I certainly have my favourites. So the first one at the top here is all or nothing or black and white thinking. So this is when we kind of get very absolute with how we're talking about situations. So I noticed myself the other day going, I've had a really bad day today. And then that can really easily go to, I've had a bad week or I've had a bad month. And then I heard somebody say the other day, I've had a really bad year. And I kind of call it black and white thinking as well, but let's be honest, it's more on the black side than the white, because we don't tend to say I've had the best day ever, or I've had a really good year, or I've had a really good day today. Again, we're much more inclined to go much towards what is not going okay. So the second one is overgeneralizing, and we tend to be using this one if we hear ourselves saying always or never. So this always happens to me. I never seem to get these things right. I was packing a school bag for my son the other day and I'd forgotten one item that he needed for his school trip. This always happens to me. I always forget things like this. So similar to black and white thinking with overgeneralizing, we will overgeneralize the things that aren't going the right way. We don't tend to overgeneralize the things that are going the right way and going positive for us. The next one down is personalizing, and this tends to be when we catch ourselves saying I or me. So when that example before, when I said this always happens to me, I've used a lovely example of two kind of unhelpful thinking patterns in one phrase there. So with personalizing, this tends to be when we take 100% responsibility for situations that aren't going in the right way. So you know, there's traffic on the way to work, like I always do this, you know, like I've somehow got responsibility for all the traffic in Northern Ireland, but I'm assuming responsibility for that I've got it wrong in that moment. And exactly the same with the other things. We personalize things that aren't going well. We don't tend to personalize things that are going well. So that situation at work today went well. That was 100% due to me. We don't tend to say that. My personal favourite, catastrophizing and a mountain out of a molehill. So this is when we go from one piece of information to the absolute worst case scenario in a very quick space of time. We jump through the thoughts very quickly. So my husband works night shifts, and sometimes he might be coming quite late, coming back in the morning. So it starts off like this. He's a little bit late. He's a little bit late, I wonder what's happened. He's a little bit late, something bad's happened. Maybe he's been in an accident, maybe he's dead in a ditch, maybe he's at the hospital, maybe he's died, and before I know it, I'm contemplating my life as a widow and managing that situation. And then of course he walks in through the door. Now, I know I've kind of made light of that situation, but it's really just to show how quickly we go from one piece of information to an absolute worst case scenario. And that can take 5-10 seconds. That can happen so quickly. And of course, if I'm sat there thinking something really awful has happened to my husband, that has a massive impact on my mood and then how I'm feeling. And the other really common one is, you know, if you're at work and your boss might say, can I see you in my office in a minute? What have I done? I've done something wrong. I'm going to be pulled up on something. What if I handed my notice? What if I'm unemployed? How will I pay for things? You know, it happens a million miles an hour, these scenarios, and we race to those worst case scenarios. Another favourite of mine is mind reading. So this is when we start making assumptions about what other people might be thinking of us. So, you know, and this is really common for people that struggle with social anxiety. So they're really making assumptions around, this person thinks that I'm not coping, or this person thinks that I don't look right, or this person thinks that, you know, I'm embarrassing to be around. So we're making assumptions about what other people are thinking about us. And of course, it's never positive assumptions what other people are thinking about us. The danger with this one is it can very quickly move from I think that person thinks that about me to that person is thinking that about me, and then that becomes a whole more level of like a much more powerful thought, and how more distressing that will make us feel. Coming down then to disqualifying the positive. So I think this tends to be a little bit cultural, this one. I think it's our sort of inability to accept compliments. So if someone says to me, "Oh, I really like your top," "Oh, this old thing," or "You did really well, you know, you did really well in that thing at work today." "Oh no, it wasn't me, it was all somebody else." So we're not great at accepting positive praise, but again, I kind of think about compliments and praise as in somebody's giving you a bit of a gift, and the power of being able to take that compliment on and take that quality on is really powerful. It's equally as powerful to say I'm not taking that on and I'm kind of not willing to accept that. I think for this particular thought pattern, I almost feel like you're putting yourself in a bit of a vulnerable situation, and I can almost think back to school days when someone said, "Oh, I like your shoes," and you went, "Oh, thanks," and they went, "Oh, not really." And I think there's something around, we can feel a bit vulnerable when we accept praise. But again, if we're disqualifying the positive, we're pushing away things, and again, with all the other thought patterns, we're very happy to accept the negatives about us that we think people might be thinking, or we think about ourselves. And the last one here is shoulds, oughts and musts. So these tend to be the really kind of quite high standards that we can put on ourselves, and they tend to have been gathered maybe a little bit in our younger years, and they can form beliefs about ourselves, about others and about the world. So for example, for myself, I might think that I should put others first. I might think that other people should be fair towards me, and I might think that the world should be a respectful place. So if I hold those rules really rigidly, I'm gonna get into some problems with that, because everybody has their own versions of their rules for living, and a lot of problems that we get into with other people might be a clash of those rules for living. And for some of us, there might be a role for some general counselling here, because if you do have a really strong belief of I must put other people first, and then as a knock-on effect to that, it might be really hard for you to put your own needs first in situations, it might be a really helpful question to think about, where did you learn that about yourself? Where did you learn that other people had to come before you? And that might be something that could be helpful to explore in, say, general counselling. So that's the unhelpful thinking patterns. I'm guessing most of you might have recognised some as I was talking through them. I certainly have my favourites.